Hello and welcome to All About Autism, our monthly charity show here on London Greek Radio that aims to help better understand autism and create a better society for autistics and the wider autism community. My name is Dr. Chris Papadopoulos and I'll be your host for the next hour. I'm a father of 3 children, 2 of whom are autistic, and I'm the founder and lead of the London Autism Group charity. I'm also a principal lecturer in public health at the University of Bedfordshire. Today I'm joined by my lovely and amazing co-host and charity volunteer, Ellie Christodoulou. How you doing, Ellie?
I'm good. Christodoulou.
I changed your name on live. Yeah, I went from Palazzi to Christodoulou. Yeah.
I'm still getting used to it, but yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, how's it feel having your name changed officially?
Yeah, it's good. Same old me.
Same old you.
Yeah.
And how's your month been otherwise?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm happy that there's sun in the sky and it's getting brighter. Very happy about that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's nice.
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
Massive difference.
At least for me it does. Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah. So, as listeners may know, on each monthly episode, we focus on a different topic related to autism. Today's show is going to be really interesting. We'll be talking about the challenges that may be present around food and sort of sensory issues and anxieties around food. And we're going to be talking about this mainly to help understand these challenges and how to support the autistic person and also, I suppose, the family as a whole, the whole unit. Yeah. So, we'll be talking about food today. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you want to discuss this topic with us, share any questions, ask any questions, share any thoughts. You can do it really easily. All you need to do is to pop onto your phone or your computer and go to facebook.com/London Autism Group Charity, all one word, and then click on the live stream. You'll see that we're live, and once you do that, you'll be able to see us in the studio, which I'm monitoring the live stream, so you can easily add a comment or question there. If you do add a question or a comment, we'll pick it up and we'll discuss it. And this live stream also will be saved permanently, so we'll always have a sort of recording of this chat to help people in the future. And that recording will go on to our YouTube channel, which is easily searchable. If you just go to YouTube and search for London Autism Group Charity, and you'll find our channel, and all of the episodes that we have here are there. So that's our intro.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to say as well, some of these topics that we cover is sensitive, so please look after yourselves. We always put a disclaimer on things, don't we, because people are triggered by some of the things that we say, so please look after yourselves. So Chris, can you explain why food may have an impact on an autistic or a neurodivergent person? And can you explain what ARFID is? Yeah,
maybe I should start with ARFID. So ARFID is an acronym that stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. I'm personally, I think you're saying we're not sure about this acronym. I mean, anything with the word disorder on it.
Get in touch with that, because we're not sure of that language.
That is the current acronym widely used. I mean, it is a very, very serious, very challenging thing. But whether it's whether we should be framing it as an inherent disorder or not is questionable. But essentially, ARFID, you might say, is an eating challenge that is about the profound avoidance and restriction of food. It's not about body image concerns, but rather it's about sort of sensory related difficulties or the anxieties that somebody might have around food. They may have some historical trauma around food, and because of these various challenges, they're unable essentially to eat, and so their diet and their food intake is extremely restricted, and that obviously has profound impacts on their wider mental and physical health. But it is different to other types of eating difficulties. So it's not, like I said, it's really not about body image or appearance. It is about the connection they have with food. And that connection, as I said, is going to be often about sensory related difficulties. And I suppose this is something that's going to come up a lot, throughout our conversation when it comes to food, that a lot of the difficulties is around that sensory processing part of it, whether it's to do with the texture of a food, the colour, even the colour. I mean, I know a lot of autistic, the smell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the way it looks.
The way it looks, the way it's presented, the environment that you're in when you're having it. Everything, all of the sort of environmental and sensory.
That's a biggie, isn't it, Chris? Because I was just thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about school dinners.
Yeah.
And the smell that wafts from those kitchens, and also the lingering smells, even after children have gone and everyone's cleaned up. It's still in the air. It's like in the fabric. It actually is quite nauseating.
Yeah, I'd say that a lot of people would relate to that. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, including neurotypical people, I don't think you have to be autistic or neurodivergent to relate to that sort of nasty smell that we might associate with, school dinner, cafeterias, or wherever it might be. And then, you associate that food that you had, maybe you had like, burgers and chips, or certain thing frequently during that time, and then later on it affects your perception of it. But for people with ARFID and other eating difficulties, it's like what we're saying times 100. Do you know what I mean? Like the really affects them big time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
For you and I, it's probably like not nice, but for people with these significant eating problems, it's.
And also, if we put that in the Greek context, our Greek heritage, about how every event is around and based around food. If someone dies, you have food. If someone's
it's very much in our culture, isn't it? Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about the environment. You've got a busy, noisy environment. You've got the smells. You've got people talking like 100 decibels. Well, my family, and that's probably me. But it's within that. Thinking about it within that context, it's actually quite serious. And I was just thinking about the older generation where it's they shove food in front of you, because this has happened to me a couple of times, and I know that I keep going on about macaroni di forno, and that's my nemesis, because I just don't get it. It's just yuck. Sorry everyone to offend, but when they offer, it's like they're offering their love and their gratitude.
It's like a vessel of love, isn't it?
So it's on a plate for you, but that plate, you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh my God, how much, first of all, the amount that is put on it, and also you were talking about the way that it's presented. So some people might not like things touching, or might want things on a separate plate. So we just have to be mindful about how we are with food.
I don't think culturally and historically in our culture, I don't think we have been very mindful of all this, and that's not something we're thinking about. It's too important to sort of food has such an important place in our culture that sort of maybe sacrificing our traditions goes too far. You know what I mean? But I totally agree. It's such a big thing, and that might make it particularly scary for people with significant eating difficulties, such as ARFID, who are autistic. Do you know what I mean? And in the Greek culture, not just in the Greek culture, but any culture where food is really, if you're unable to cope with the food, it's at least from my experience, if you've been unable to eat your family's food or your relatives' food, it's quite insulting. But and these people might not be able to even sit at the table. And
for sure.
That is even more insulting. So it's that adds a massive layer of anxiety, doesn't it?
Oh, huge. And you always have to think. And we talk about environment and how important it is. You've got lights blazing, you've got noise, music,
movement,
voices, movement. you need a breakout, you know. And it's, again, considered rude if you leave the table, you're not eating, or, it's this, where are they? What, they're not, you know. So, you know, it's shifting the narrative of, if someone is at the table, bonus.
Yeah.
If they're not eating, okay, they might eat later. I know that my son, he might be at the table, he won't eat. He'll eat a bit later, or he'll come back to it, or even if there is a lot of people at the table, there's no way that he's going to sit there.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. You know, we've accepted that. At first it was hard, I'm not going to lie. That was hard because...
That's the way we were brought up.
Yeah, absolutely, because we were, you know, 6 o'clock, dinner on the table, everyone around the table. Which, again, was tricky. With all the smells and the noise and everything else, but again, it's reshaping how you think about each individual need.
Yeah. I think you know, it's really, I think the cultural stuff's really relevant.
Yeah,
here.
very.
You know, I mean, for us, at least in my experience, you know, being Greek Cypriot and everything, you know, I've always felt that there hasn't been much, you know, consideration for different people's needs when it comes to this sort of thing. You know, somebody's not sat at the table or not sat at the right way, and they're not not engaging in it. It's quite stigmatized. You know? And like ultimately, I would sort of say to everybody listening, you know, if you see a child who's struggling to, or not just a child, anyone who's struggling to sort of be present in that environment, even though it's important to you. You know, bear in mind they may not be able to cope. They may be, you know, having sensory related problems. They may be, you know, they may be having eating difficulties. Then you're not aware of it. So you know, just always be kind of compassionate. You know, and as much as you can flexible. And it could very well be that the person who's struggling to attend to the table in the way that, you know, we're expecting in our culture, they may not know themselves they're neurodivergent and have all these issues. You know, and they may be embarrassed and ashamed. So it's just one of those things I think we've got to just relax a little bit on. You know.
Yeah, it's important that you said that, because also when it's anxiety inducing. So if you've got all these expectations of everyone has to sit down, everyone has to be a particular way, then if it's not, then your anxiety is raised and then your expectations aren't met, and then it kind of goes down a path of, it's a bit destructive, isn't it? Because then you start to get worked up, and then obviously it's uncomfortable and the other person senses it. So it's just a bit of understanding and respect, really. Yeah. Respect the difference. I think that's the main thing.
And you know, I mean, I totally agree. And I think one of the other things related to this is what children, I mean, I'm particularly thinking about children here because I've seen it in my own experience, when they sometimes at the table get their phone out, right?
Oh yeah, big one.
And that's, you know, some people respond really negatively to that. So that's really rude, or you shouldn't be bringing your phone or your iPad to the table. But you know, in cases where it's, you know, it is the case that the child is neurodivergent or is struggling to cope with the sensory environment, you know, is it really such a terrible thing? In my view, if it helps them to cope with their well-being, you know, I mean, so long as they're not loading up Squid Game or something like that on their phone, do you know what I mean? It's something, you know, so long as it's reasonable content, should we not be, you know, okay about that, a bit more flexible about it? I think it's a bit of a touch point, isn't it?
No, I think it's a good one for our listeners to get in touch with and give us their views, actually, because I think that phones is a big one, and I know that my son has his laptop, and that's the only way that he can cope with just sitting at the table or even being in the next room. I think it'll be interesting to get the listeners' viewpoint.
Yeah, so should we go to a little short break now? As Ellie said, you know, if you're listening to this and want to get involved in the chat, you know, please feel free to just log on to facebook.com/London Autism Group Charity, pop in a question or a comment and we'll pick it up. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back everybody. You're listening to All About Autism, our monthly charity radio show here, aimed at helping us all better understand neurodivergent people. So today we're talking about food-related issues, and we are having a lovely discussion, very meaningful discussion, about some of the reasons why autistic people might struggle with food. And I think we didn't, it was interesting bringing the Greek culture and the cultural stuff to the table.
Like we did there,
So Ellie, what other reasons are there why autistic people might struggle when it comes to food in their their sort of intake of food?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking again what I said previously about having a routine and how important that is. So you know when your food is going to be, where it's going to be presented, and the environment. And we've talked about how important the environment is, and also thinking about the OCD element of that, the environment of where it's cooked. The hygiene element, I know that's a big thing for me because I need to see where my food's cooked and how it's cooked and the source of it. That's a really big issue for me.
Yeah, that brings a lot of anxiety to people.
Massive.
Yeah.
Because again, that also stems from family saying, "Oh, don't eat out. Home is better. Home is, so you get used to that sort of home-cooked, home environment, food, which some people don't have. So that's one element of it. And also how that impacts hugely.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
It does massively, yeah. I mean, just on that point, I would also add, that people sometimes, it's the safety of their home environment is important. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's them that's cooking the food, for example, preparing the food, they're doing their, they've got it in their environment, in their steps, and they're reliant on that routine if you're autistic. Whereas if you're having to go to a restaurant and you're outside of that space, especially if it's not it's not somebody that you trust or an environment you trust, or it's foreign to you, all of the sort of safety of the predictability is sort of removed. That causes a lot of anxiety. But I just wanted to also pick up on the OCD thing that I think you're absolutely right about the OCD aspect. I wanted to actually tell a little story about somebody who told me that she's an autistic woman who lost a lot, went on a diet. She wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and she got one of these Fitbits and was tracking her steps. And she was using, I think, MyFitnessPal, one of these apps that where you log the calorie intake. So you're logging. So you're logging the food that you're eating, and it's telling you the calories. So you're tracking the calorie amounts. And for many people that is a really useful way of, for me, when I want to lose weight, that's what I do. I track.
Really?
That really helps me. But for her, she had OCD sort of tendencies, and I don't think she realised going into it. But that ended up being a bit of a nightmare for her, because she was achieving it. She was losing weight, and she was meeting her set. So she'd calculated what her set goal was in terms of the calorie amount and the step amount she needed to do each day. But she told me that she got very obsessive about it. So if she went 1 calorie over or one step over, it would cause her a lot of anxiety. And it would and equally if she was still not at her target amount, she'd be thinking she'd always be planning and thinking about how's she going to get there, what does she need to eat, what does she need to do to get to her number every day, really sort of specifically, and it took over her life. It just took over. But because it took over her life, she lost a lot of weight, to the point where she was telling me that she was getting what's called cognitive fog. Where you're
because
so
of deficit of calories.
She was so weak that she wasn't able to sort of think, even sleep and think, and she couldn't. She was telling me she couldn't talk. She couldn't function. She couldn't function. So that is another reason. That's another problem, another challenge. The OCD aspect.
So she took it sort of a bit too far. So, but that's interesting in itself, because I know that autistic people, when they do something, they do it correctly and by rules. There are rules. If you're going to do something and you've given me a set of rules, then I will follow those rules quite rigidly.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
So wow, that's an interesting.
Yeah. So it could be because of the rules. If you're right. Autistic people, they tend to. I mean, not everybody's different, but they tend to like rules, utilize rules, and losing weight. It does involve rules. Do you know what I mean? And so
it does.
For a lot of autistics, they can probably do it quite effectively, but it's doing it in a way where there's balance and reason, and it's not affecting your mental health. And I think autistics may sometimes struggle with that aspect. But as per my story, I had another little story as well.
Go on then.
Just about executive functioning. The other thing, I think another reason is executive functioning. And executive functioning is something that a lot of autistic people struggle with. I know that my son in particular really struggles with this. I mean, this is
Well, can you explain a bit about that?
Yeah. So executive functioning is our ability. Everybody has this a sort of cognitive ability to plan ahead, right? So what are the steps that I need to do in order to achieve that task?
Okay.
And it could be a small task, it could be a big task. Do you know what I mean? It could be what do I need to do in order to get ready for my holiday and get to the airport? What are those things that I need to do, like check in, all these things in between, pack my bags and charge my phones and blah 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 blah. There's a lot of steps, and so if you struggle with executive functioning, then you struggle with sort of understanding the sequence of steps and what needs to go in, and then that really affects your quality of life. Actually, there's some research that shows that is a major thing for people. It's quality of life. Does it make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, I can see what you're saying, because even getting up and thinking, right, well, I need to get out of bed and I need to go to the bathroom. Even those small steps are tricky, aren't they?
Yeah, and everything requires planning.
Do
you know what I mean? So it's always planning. We're planning all the time.
Yeah.
Like we're not thinking about it, but we. I mean, sometimes we are. But I mean, subconsciously, we're always sort of cognitively planning. And autistics, a lot of them struggle with executive functioning, and my son in particular, that is one of his main challenges. And I mean, this is just a small anecdote, but I think it demonstrates the wider potential problem when it comes to food. So I think my son was watching TV. I don't know what he was watching. I hope it wasn't Squid Game. I don't know
what is that anyway? What is
you don't know about Squid Game? Oh right, okay.
Sorry.
Oh right, okay. Now I know why you gave me that look when I mentioned it before. It's this South Korean TV show where people enter it to win money, and it's sort of it's a competition of death. So
you've got to keep alive.
You've got to stay alive. Through these series of games. And whoever stays alive at the end, and it's quite graphic, so it's not great for children,
Right.
So anyway, he was watching TV, and I hope it wasn't that. I can't remember what it was. And he got up. I remember he got up and he went to the kitchen. He said, "I'm going to make myself a peanut butter and jam toasted sandwich."
Right.
Right. He likes peanut butter and jam
together.
Yeah, you know how the Americans do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a sandwich.
Yeah.
And he got his 2 slices of bread and he put it in the toaster.
Right.
Right. And he toasted it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards he was like, "Oh, do we have peanut butter and jam?" And I was like, I'm not really sure. Do we have peanut butter and jam? So he looked in the cupboards and we couldn't find either. Oh. Right. No. And so he then had a bit of a meltdown, unfortunately, because he had an expectation that he was going to have this, and he was really looking forward to it. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to...
As you were saying that, in my mind I was having a little panic.
Yeah.
Like, where is it?
Yeah.
I want it, so where is it?
Exactly, exactly. I know it doesn't sound like a lot. It doesn't sound like a small thing, but when, like my son, when he's got his heart set on something like that, it's all about expectations, what he's sort of expecting, but he's not necessarily great at planning to achieve that expectation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he didn't think, oh, do we have these ingredients? Do you know what I mean? Like he
assumed that you'd have it. Yeah, but surely you would have made that before.
he may have assumed, or he may not have even been thinking about it. He's just acting on impulse as to what he wants. And so that can be sometimes a bit of a problem where because there's a lot of planning involved in cooking, preparing food, going shopping, getting the ingredients. There's so much planning.
Yeah.
And for a lot of autistics that struggle with executive functioning, that's lots and lots of anxiety. So what do? They often go to fast food or easy to prepare foods, because that's easy and quick and doesn't require so much stress.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that also has problems because it's not healthy.
No.
What do you think?
So then, what did he have then?
I had to go to the shops and get
you had to go to the shop.
That
is it. Because when you want something,
he was he was really upset about it. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but for him,
it is
in that
upsetting.
moment,
and especially if you reach for something in the cupboard and it's not there, that is. Or if someone's eating my crisps, no, the alarm! But you better run. That's interesting that you said about reaching for the quickest and available food, because I'm having a bit of an issue at the moment with my son eating food that isn't home cooked, the total opposite of me, because he can't bear the smell of cooking. So I have to prepare him. And I open the windows and the back door and the extractor fans going, but he's in his room and he will scream down, "What are you cooking?" And frying is his nemesis. So he will he will have a meltdown if he can smell those cooking smells.
Yeah, the smell. I mean,
so I have to
sometimes,
prepare him, or I've got to avoid. And chips, he hates them. Can you believe it?
Wow. Okay.
He hates homemade chips.
Because there's a bit of a. I think we'll go to break in a minute, but just to say lastly on this point about chips, and crisps. There's a view that autistics like beige food. Anything that's got this kind of plain beigey colour. That's simple, like potatoes,
it's
like
safe
crisps.
Though, isn't it? You know what you're getting.
Yeah. Safe food. So. But everybody's different, like your son. He's not into chips. So it's. But this is interesting because we've got a question here on the live stream Facebook site about how if we've got any ideas on how to increase a child's range of acceptable foods.
I'd like to think about that.
I'd like to pick that up after the break.
Sure.
So if anyone listening has any other questions, pop them in now. Now's the time, and we'll pick them up after a short break. So stay tuned and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to All About Autism, our monthly charity show that aims to help us all better understand neurodivergent people. We're live streaming on Facebook on the charity website, so please take a look at that. Let's go back to that question, Chris, and then we can think about how best to support neurodivergent people, autistic people, with what they can do and support.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so thank you to Das Banayi, who has put in a question on our live stream that I think is just too important to ignore. So the question is, are there any ideas that we have on how to increase a child's range of acceptable foods?
Yeah, okay.
So I'm sure a lot of parents are struggling with this, maybe,
and it's worrying.
Yeah, it is worrying. Yeah, it's really hard. I think that's the first thing to say, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Don't beat yourself.
Yeah, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Because we had, with my son, when they were toddlers, they used to have everything out so they could touch, they could eat, they could have their fruit, their main whatever. And then slowly, he lessened what he ate. So his range of food really was very narrow, and wanted just one particular food, which was rice cakes, which was very worrying. So I started to introduce food slowly. So the cucumber and tomato, which is the staple of our diet, he wouldn't touch it, but every time we would eat, I'd have it available. So I'd just have it there. Apparently, a nutritionist told me it takes 17 attempts for a new food to be introduced. I don't know if that's true, but I certainly had it out all the time, every meal time. So it was available.
Making it familiar.
Yeah, and also good just a small amount. It doesn't have to be a lot. And I wasn't worried about whether he ate it. It was just an exposure.
Yeah. That's actually a great place to start, isn't it? I think one of the main things is to get the foods, and which foods we can talk about in a moment. But if you're trying to introduce a particular new food, to introduce it, slowly, but also, sort of regularly, to increase familiarity, so that they don't feel, overwhelmed or pressured. Exactly. It's just making it safer. So don't think that if they've rejected a particular food once, that's game over. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously don't push it on them. If they, don't create this a more pressured situation. I mean, that is one of the most important things, isn't it? Is to make sort of reduce the pressure of the situation and increase the sort of kindness and support situation. But part of that is to have that food they may have previously rejected, there many times, and unless it's causing them distress or pain, of course. Sure,
and if they don't have it once, they might come back to it.
They might come back to it.
So just keep persevering. The other thing I was going to say was let them take a feel, a smell at their own pace. So respect them with their food. I got my son to help me with the cooking as much as he hated it. But then gradually he started to enjoy it, and he was getting involved. So he had to say apron, he'd wash his hands, he was chopping, we were talking. So he was being included in the food prep. He could see the environment. He could see what he was eating. He might not necessarily eat it, but he was involved in it in some way.
Yeah, I thought that's a great one. Get them involved. The other one is to think about which foods they may have seen on their favourite TV shows or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, one of my my youngest son, he suddenly said to me, he says, Dad, I'd like to try some dragon fruit. Out of nowhere, dragon fruit. I was like, oh, that's right. Where did you see some dragon? Oh, it's on my show, my YouTube channel, dragon fruit. And he was just curious about it because he had this positive association with it, because he's positive. He's got this positive, connection with this show.
But that's so important, isn't it? How closely connected and how much emotion we have with food. And when we go back to talking about cultural aspect, it's entwined in so many things, rituals, festivities, everything that's associated with, at the moment it's Lent, giving something up, eating horta, like vegetables and things. So it's just so emotive and so highly charged, I think, food.
Yeah, that's a great point. With regard to the cultural stuff, I think one of the problems, at least in maybe in the Greek culture, is that our foods are very rich. They are sensory kind of chaotic, in a way. And maybe, some parents who are relying on Greek foods.
And then when you cook this loving meal, and then they ask for chicken nuggets or hoots, and they say, this is delicious, with something out of a tin. Don't take that to heart.
Exactly.
Sorry, going back to your point, it's true.
No, it's just to say that, so much of it is sensory related. So if it is that they're struggling with the smell of the food or the tastes, it could just be Greek food. It could be quite overwhelming, so it might be that you might as a parent need to introduce sort of softer or more simple foods, but foods that you think align to their sensory preferences. Do you know what I mean? Also, change the environment is another one, because sometimes it's not the food per se, but it's the smell of the environment or the setup of the environment. Maybe they've had one too many negative experiences in that particular room, to be calm and anxious free to explore new foods. So try a different safer space, or change the environment if you haven't got another space.
So it could be the lighting, it could be the smell of the lingering cooking in the kitchen, it could be the TV, the noise, as you say, too hot, too cold, everything. But also they do watch you, they do observe what you're eating too. So just bear that in mind. I know that my two always watch what we're eating and how we're eating it. Of course,
really?
I've got my fork in my right. That's the bone of contention. That's the controversy in our household. I eat with my right.
Second. You've got the fork.
My fork is my right.
Left-handed?
I'm not.
You're
I'm
right-handed.
Yeah.
And you're holding the fork. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's just plain wrong.
That is no. You lot are wrong. No, sorry. That's
I don't know if we're going to be able to continue this show.
Yeah, sorry. It's just weird. You lot are weird. Anyway, so obviously they watch everything, but just be kind. That's what I'm saying.
Flexible.
Be kind to yourself and understanding and patience and respect. Because, as I say, food is such a highly charged, emotive topic. If you see your child not eating, of course you're going to worry. You're going to reach out, go to your GP, make sure that they're, everything is okay with whether there's thinking about nutrition and all of that kind of stuff. So do go to your GPs and your health visitors and things if you're worried about your child or young person. Get advice.
I just want to say one more thing on this. I always say that one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing.
But I'll try to make it one more thing. Just, if it feels to you that you're struggling to introduce a wider range of foods and your child is just, or, maybe we're talking about the autistic person themselves, you are, you are struggling to diversify your what you're eating, then don't try not to stress about that too much. At the end of the day, you are getting what you need. Calorific intake. You're eating. You're getting some nutrients. And it's a step in the right direction. Do you know what I mean? So don't beat yourself up about it, and maybe just be as patient as you can with it. And eventually things change. And I know that my son, he had a very restricted diet when he was younger, and it was slow and it was challenging, but now he eats all sorts of foods. So please, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that the expression?
I think so. I think so. But also, this is what I was saying. We've got a community cafe on Sunday, from 1 to 3, Southgate. If you come and talk to parents, come and talk to autistic people. I think that's where I got my support and my encouragement and my thinking and different trials and you're not alone in this. That's the most important thing to say. And that's where you're going to get the best advice. You're going to get all sorts of advice from all other autistic people that've got those experiences or families that have been through that. So come along to our community cafes. We do have one this Sunday in Southgate in St Andrew's Church. And that is at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and Ellie and I will be there. And we have other community cafes. They're all entirely free and fully accessible. All welcome.
Everybody's welcome. You don't have to be autistic. You can be a parent or somebody interested in autism, an ally. And so come along. All of the details for those community cafes are on our website, which is londonautismgroupcharity.org. I should also say that we have, if you are an autistic adult listening to this, or an autistic adult who may be interested, we have our monthly autistic activity day at the Holy Sepulchre Church in the City of London, and that's happening this Saturday. So all of our details, again, of all these events are on our website. And that brings us to the end of today's show.
That went quick.
That went very quick.
Yeah.
Next month, we'll be on live on the 3rd of April, which, as always, is the first Thursday of the month. So don't forget that. We're always on the first Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. And so, that brings us to the end. Thank you very much, Ellie. It was a great chat. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.
Thank you also to Tony Neofido in the background, helping with everything, James Gordon for his editorial input, and of course all of you lovely listeners. And finally, stay tuned for the amazing and one and only Andonis Prokopiou, who is up next. Have a good month.
Bye.